Okay, hey guys, I've been watching people do the mid-year freakout tag, and I figured I haven't posted a lot lately due to events. Just to give you an update on how I am doing, I want to read 184 books by the end of the year. And you say, that does sound like a completely random number. I just wanted to read 5 more books than I read last year, and I was trying to read 180 books. And I just didn't quite make it, so I was at 179, so 184 books this year. I've currently completed 78, so I am 7 books behind schedule. So, I've been in this weird off and on reading slump because of COVID-19, and then all the other stuff that happened kind of put me in a bit of a slump. And so I put myself in a bit of a slump off and on through COVID-19, and so I'm a little bit behind. So, just to get on from that, I have a list of the questions right here, so let's go through them. Best book you've read so far in 2020? I have 3. There's actually more, but I included them in other selections, so I didn't keep repeating myself. So starting out, the first one I completed this year, If You Tell, or of this selection I completed this year, If You Tell by Greg Olson. This is a nonfiction book following the story of the Konek sisters and how their mom's a serial killer and how they survived. I loved it in the sense that it kept me engaged. Like, I obviously didn't love what happened, and it is very brutal. You okay? It is very brutal, but it was engaging, and I loved seeing them grow and come together and not separate each other because of their mom's games. There is that. I think the next one I finished, I don't know the exact order, but the next two, well, not next. The next one is The Way of Kings Part 1, which now I'm thinking about, I did definitely finish this one after I finished the other one I'm going to mention, but oh well. And this is Part 1. I'm currently reading Part 2, so I loved the first half of this book. So I guess this one only technically counts in the sense, but I know I'm going to love Part 2 just as much. I've just been in a bit of a slump, so there's that. But this is a book that I can only kind of tell you what's about. Not only have I not finished it, but I don't want to spoil anything, and the synopsis on the back is kind of vague. But, so basically, this takes place in a world called Roshar, or Rosher, and it has a lot of these storms. They're called high storms, and they're very brutal, and they're, like, almost impossible to survive if you get caught out in them, and so you have to be in these shelters, and most of these shelters are built where there's, like, these rock formations, so you're safe. And in this world, there were people called Radiants, and they were, from what I can tell, they fought these things called the Voidbringers, who were evil, and so the Radiants were good, and it was like this endless cycle. But they disappeared, or they left, and so people believe they, like, betrayed them. There's a lot going on, and you're following, I would say, 3 main characters. You're following Kaladin, Shallan, and Dalinar. Nar. It does end in an AR. Callan, there we go. Callan was a soldier in one of the armies. So there's like this head king, and then there's like these little, I guess, mini kings, I guess is what you'd call them. And there's all these little kingdoms, but they're all one, but they're not really. And so Callan worked for one of the smaller kings, or they call them Bright Lords. So I'm not explaining this well, but the social class is based on the color of your eyes, and the lighter your eyes, the higher rank you were, and so the people were called Bright Lords, and so he worked for one of them, and basically you follow him through his life, which seems to be very unfortunate. You're also following Dalinar, who is one of the Bright Lords, and he seems to be having these problems with the High Storms where he gets visions and everyone thinks he's crazy, and so you're following him trying to see if he's actually crazy or not. And Shalyn is a young girl who is trying to save her family by doing something. Like, she has to do something, and it's technically illegal, but she has to do it to save her family, and so she's kind of stuck in this situation. So you haven't completed all of the story arcs in this one, but from what I see of their story arcs, I do love it. The last one last one I'm going to mention for this one is Brandon Sanderson Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. Okay. So, this one could have fit in another prompt because I started this in 2019 and I set it down because it just wasn't doing it for me. And so I started it and I put it down, and so I finally picked it up again. And I loved it. So if you don't know what Skyward is about, Skyward follows this girl named Spinsa, and she wants to be a fighter pilot. Is that what they call them? She wants to fly, and so she's kind of told no because her father is known as a coward because he fled from a battle, and you follow her. So someone like kind of bends the rules and lets her into the flight school, and you follow her fighting like these prejudices against her. You also follow her as she learns, and there's just so much going on here that I love. Okay, so the second question is best sequel you've read so far. I haven't read that many sequels. I'm not even sure I could tell you which ones were actually sequels, but the best new sequel, because I did reread the entire series of Unfortunate Events, but the best new sequel is The Fate of the Dwarves by Marcus Heights. This is not the finale. I am hopefully going to finish the last book in the series this month. I haven't even started. This one is really good. I did enjoy it. It was a little bit slower than the others because it takes place like a significant time after the third book, and so a lot of the human characters have died of old age, and so we're kind of getting introduced to their kids. Or kids or grandkids. Like, I think some of them are grandkids, maybe. So you're being introduced to, like, their descendants, and so you're trying to get that backstory, as long as there's, like, a lot of issues going on in this book, and it's very good. I loved it. I believe I gave it 5 stars, so moving on. The Dwarves universe is kind of like Tolkien in that you have the elves, and you have the dwarves, and you have the humans, and you have the wizards, which they call mages, and you have orcs, and the orcs are the villains, obviously, but you have evil elves as well, called the Alfar, and it's just like a Tolkien-esque kind of world. However, the plot definitely diverges from Tolkien, especially after the first book. Like, the first book, you kind of get that, like, quest mentality that you kind of get with the Lord of the Rings series and the Hobbit, but after that, it definitely takes a turn, and it's still good. It's a little bit darker. Not a little bit. It's definitely darker than Tolkien took his books. And there are some trigger warnings for gore and violence in the series, and specifically in the third book, there is trigger warning for non-consensual sex. Like, I wouldn't necessarily, I mean, technically it was rape, but it was technically rape because the person wasn't conscious when it took place. That part weirded me out a bit, and I was, like, kind of put off. Part of the reason it took me so long to read this one is that kind of put me off from this book, but it's okay. We're moving on. A new release you haven't read yet, but you want to. So this is question 3, and I'm going to say Burn by Patrick Ness. I don't really remember what it's about. I just remember hearing, I think, Books and Lala. No, not Books and Lala. Becca and the Books talk about it. And I don't think she really liked it, but I just heard her talk about it, so I wanted to pick it up. And I've also read one of his other books, The Monster Calls, which I enjoyed, so we'll see. Most anticipated release for the second half of the year, and I'm going to say The Nobleman's Guide to Scandal and Shipwreck by Mackenzie Lee. I know there was some controversy about her like a long time ago, but I couldn't find what she actually said that was so controversial, and I haven't really heard anyone talk about it. They're all kind of like, if you know, you know. So I'm just going to stay out of that one until I know for sure. I also have this ability to take a book and enjoy it despite the author. Especially if I read a book previous to this comment that I really liked. So there's like a few authors that I won't ever read from, and it's more of how or what they do. I don't want to say with their money because that sounds bad, but like I've mentioned before on the channel, I am a Christian, and there are specific authors that fund anti-Christian beliefs. I think even one of them like funds like a group that kills Christians, and I'm like, we'll put a hold on that. So yes, I haven't read The Lady's Guide to Petticoats and something, I think, or something in petticoats. I don't remember what it's called. But I need to read that one as well. But I'm super excited for this. Question 5 was biggest disappointment. And I have one for that. Well, that's helpful. I have a lot of editing to do with this one. Okay, so my biggest disappointment is The 10,000 Doors of January by Alex E. Harrow. I heard a lot of people love this, and I think I gave this one 3 stars, so it's not that I hated it, but it was so slow in the beginning, and you kind of felt like nothing was going on. It was just going to be this, like, random story and about this girl, and it's going to be, like, all these, like, random plot points. I did like how the little side book, like the second book that was okay, so this book follows a girl, and what's her name? January. Duh. Okay, so January finds this book called The 10,000 Doors, and when she was younger, she accidentally stumbled in through this door, and then it like disappeared, and so she's trying to get back, but no one believes her, and she's sent to like an insane asylum. And the first part of this book kind of makes it sound like she, like nothing's gonna happen. It's just gonna be this random book about this random girl who found this other random book. But how the two books tie in together, I enjoyed. However, I didn't really want to read this until about 50% through. And so I think I ended up giving it 3 stars because I enjoyed the ending. And it wasn't that I hated it. Like, I didn't actively hate this book. I just didn't want to pick it up. Like, if I was reading it, I enjoyed it. But there was nothing driving me to pick it up, and that was a issue. So I it disappointed me. I am actually going to eventually unhaul this. I could do an unhaul video as well, because I have a whole stack of them over there. So, but I'm gonna wait, because I'll probably unhaul some other books, but we'll see. My biggest surprises, I actually have 2. But the first biggest surprise I actually started in December, and it was the book I was trying to finish before 2020, but I didn't quite make it. I'm gonna go check on that, though, because I feel like I didn't make it, but now I'm concerned that I actually did make it. So when did I finish you? Let's do Oh no. Then what rolled over? Okay, so apparently I finished this January 16th. The one I was going to mention is One for the Blackbird, One for the Crow by Olivia Hawker. Apparently I've already finished this, though. I swore I didn't finish this one until December. When did that video come up? Maybe I didn't review it until this January? YouTube Studio coming in handy. Hi guys, my name is Taylor, and I am going to be doing a book review for my very first YouTube video. And so I'm going to break this up into 3 parts. The first part will just be general information about the book. Okay, so I'm kind of confused on... No, I finished this January 16th. I was thinking I finished it December 16th. Y'all, cancel. My brain has canceled itself. That's what it is. Okay, but this was the very first book I completed this year, and I loved it. One for the Blackbird, One for the Crow, for the win. It was definitely a surprise because the premise of this book is the premise for it is something that I wouldn't typically like. I'll leave a link in the description for my review if you want to hear it. It does get spoilery, so if you don't want to read that, I think I'd give you a, non-spoilery section and then a spoilery section. But this one was a surprise. I didn't think I was going to like it, and then I did, and now I want to reread it. The other one that I recently got is that I'm going to talk about is Malice by Pen Tip Done. This, I guess I kind of got it recently. I got this before COVID-19 because it was signed. I think I got this for February. It was an ARC when I got it, but I didn't read it until after it was published, so oh well. And this one kind of surprised me. I thought I was gonna like it, but I didn't think I was gonna like it as much as I did, so that's kind of why it surprised me. And it definitely took turns I didn't expect it to take, and it was very overwhelming. I loved it. It was so fast paced. I loved the relationship between between Alice and Bandit. There we go. Alice and Bandit. I love their relationship and the growth in it, and it's so good. Okay, moving on. The next question is favorite new author, debut, or new to me. And I have 2. The first one being Gaitha Lodge for She Lies in Wait. This genre in general is new to me, and so I loved it, and I do want to read more from her. This is the only book I've read from her, but she is my newest favorite. And then also J. Casper Kramer, The Story That Cannot Be Told. I love how the story was written. It is a middle grade, and just how she wrote it and all the things she did, all these little illustrations, I just loved her writing, and I hope to find more stories kind of like this by her. So after that, the next question is newest favorite character. And so for this one, I'm going to have to say Kaladin from The Way of Kings. I picked up part 2. This is part 2, so I haven't finished it. But Kaladin and Dalinar are definitely... I do love them. I do enjoy Shallan's point of view, especially now. But in the beginning, I didn't really like her. But I'm growing to like her more in this half of The Way of Kings. So they are definitely my new favorite characters. Oh wait, that was newest fictional crush. Newest fictional crush is definitely Kaladin, because he's so moody, and he seems to have, I don't want to say it for sure, but he seems to have almost like depression and some mild anxiety, I think, because he goes through these mood swings where he's like super, I don't want to say happy, but like confident and almost content with what's going on in his life and how he's helping people. But then like one wrong thing can cause him to spiral, and he knows it, and he is definitely relatable, and he is my newest fictional crush. My newest favorite character, I think I'm going to have to use Rogue Wave, a book I also haven't completed, but I'm going to have to go with Seraphina. There we go, Seraphina. In this one, I didn't really enjoy her in the first book. I thought she was a little whiny. I didn't necessarily like it, but she's definitely grown, and I do like how her character is developing in this one. The next book that made you cry. Okay, so this one's a bit of a cheating, but Cry the Beloved Country by Alan Paton. This one, I teared up. I didn't actually cry with this one this time. However, I did cry when I first read it in high school, and so it made me tear up this time, but I knew what was coming, so I didn't really cry. But this book is about Africa, kind of. Okay, so like after Britain colonized it, but not like immediately after. Like it's been a while. It's I don't want it like it's gotten more infrastructure. I don't want to say it developed. That sounds bad. Their cities are bigger. They're having cars now. Like all of that. And there's still obviously like this divide between white and black, and it follows this preacher who I think they called Mfunzi is how you say preacher. I'm probably butchering how you pronounce that. And he goes to the city called Johannesburg, which he calls it like a city of sin, to go find his son, and all of that going on there was emotional. The next question is a book that made you happy. This one is going to be a bit controversial, but it's the illustrated edition of Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. This is the only illustrated edition I have. And the reason this one in particular made me happy is because the story itself I love. Like, the story itself is 5 stars, but the images I wish I could give more than 5 stars. So, The Prisoner of Azkaban is the book that made me happy. I know there's so much drama about going around with J.K. Rowling. I have this ability that unless I do something that I feel like is directly against me, I can ignore they exist, right? So, that sounds bad. That sounds really bad. I'm gonna have to edit that out. I have the ability to ignore that authors exist. There are some authors I can't ignore, but she's kind of one of them that I've grown tired of her trying to edit the story of Harry Potter. And so, like, I don't listen to her anymore because she kept trying to edit things that, like, were already written down. And so, like, I honestly don't know. I don't even find out about drama until I, like, go on YouTube and everyone's like, J.K. Rowling is canceled. And I was like, what? What did she say now? So, we'll just pretend she didn't write it, and I can still love the illustrated edition of the book. This is, like, my favorite book in the entire series, so it's probably the only one I'm going to buy an illustrated edition. They're like $30, so there's that. The last question. I think the last question, what books do you need? Oh, wait, no. Not last question. Second to last question is the most beautiful book you bought in my room. So the most beautiful book I've bought or received, I've bought it. And it's actually 2 books, but technically 1, 2 parts. I got all Brandon Sanderson's books like these, so except for The Mistborn, which I have as like a different pretty edition, like the American pretty edition. And then I have some other books that aren't in pretty edition, but it's this one. This one I think is the most beautiful because it does this, so yeah. This is my most beautiful cover, is these. The final question is, what books do I need to read by the end of the year? Any Brandon Sanderson. I want to read all the Brandon Sanderson. I want to also finish the Dwarf series by Marcus Heights, and also start and complete the Legends of the Alfar, which is 4 books long, all of them significantly shorter than the Dwarf series. I also want to read The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. I started it, got in a slump because it wasn't like Skyward, and moved on. That's my video. I hope you guys enjoyed it.